Hi, welcome to the second series of my 4 Seasons in Print set of short videos. In these videos, I'll be looking at 5 images from each of the seasons, and I'll be looking at the paper that I've decided to use to print those images on. Paper is a critical thing in photography. Whether we use a matte paper, gloss paper, satin paper, textured, heavily textured or smooth paper can really affect the way that a finished image looks and is presented to the viewer. I've also used the Canon Pro 300 A3 Plus pigment ink printer. Everything you see in this little series has been made on the Canon Pro 300. It is a printer that I've got to know reasonably well. I do go around the country with it, talking to clubs and societies and at the odd convention. It's a cracking little printer, it's portable, and it handles the Canson Infinity range of fine art papers with ease. There are some groundbreaking new papers from Canson Infinity. There are some pure white papers with no optical brighteners. And that includes matte and smooth. So, you might learn something in this video that could really give you something different now to move forward with your own photography. So let's get on with this week's video. Hi again, welcome to episode 3 of 4 Seasons in Print Series 2. This episode is autumn. So I'm going to kick off with this picture, a quintessential autumn image. We've got a stream up in the Yorkshire Dales, and we've got some lovely colours on the trees, and obviously the leaves have fallen off and they're sort of lining the water edges here, and they're sitting on the rocks that make up the foreground. So this is a classic autumn scene when we get these lovely colours. Just a quick word about the printer, the Pro 300 from Canon. Again, these kind of colours, absolutely superb, and I'm convinced that the red cartridge really does make it easier for the printer to deliver when we're looking at autumn colours with all these different shades here and different tones, going from sort of greens through to yellows and oranges and ochres and all this kind of stuff. So the printer, really nice with this. Also in this picture, there's bags of detail down here, especially in these foreground areas with the leaves on the rocks, and the printer can deliver that detail. On this particular occasion, I've decided to use the slightly textured BFK reef paper from Canson Infinity. And the reason, I think I mentioned it on one of the other episodes, is I wanted to see what adding the texture would do to areas where there's detail. Because this is very, very fine detail, very fine areas of leaves and little twigs up here and branches. And for me, the textured finish does kind of create a different feel, a sense of kind of things coming alive, things moving around a little bit, almost like a 3D effect. So I think it works really well with images like this. So sometimes I might use this paper when I've got, say, a flat sky and I want to add a new element to that image, like a texture into that flat sky. So it's no longer like, let's call it a flat space. But on this kind of picture, I think it works as well, where we want to accentuate the detail that lives within the picture. The composition is really simple. We've got a waterfall up there. The water runs through the image and comes out in this bottom corner. But there's a nice journey that the viewer's going to go on. This is my favourite kind of picture because you start off over here and we've got all this autumn colour, and the autumn colour is sort of carried on all throughout the image. So we can look back through the image, we can go up this leading line if we want, we've got these autumn leaves, and then we carry on to see more autumn leaves at the top. So there's a nice little story here, and we also know when it was taken. But all in all, on this paper, with this printer, this is a really, really nice result. I wouldn't have any problem at all selling these in my gallery. I mean, the only time I wouldn't sell them is if I was worried about things like archivability and appearance. The print looks stunning, the level of detail is amazing, and we've got the pigment inks. So the Canon pigment inks in the Pro 300 are absolutely superb, and these prints are going to last hundreds of years. So no worries about that, and that's the first image in the autumn episode. Okay, this is image 2 in the autumn episode of 4 Seasons in Print Series 2. And this is a picture from the deepest of the lakes in the Lake District. This is Wastwater. It's on the western edge of the lakes, and it's a lovely lake backed by really nice sort of mountains and hills. So there's some famous things down here, including Great Gable. And this is just a nice shot made sort of middle to late afternoon, where we sort of introduce this row of stones. They almost look like stepping stones. But the thing I like about the picture is obviously the location. The sort of mixture of water, clouds and mountains is always something that looks attractive. But I quite like the sky in this image. So you can see the sky, it's reflected down here in the water, but it's also quite similar to the actual stones that I've shot in the foreground. So this is a series of sort of objects running across the picture, and at the top we've got that repeated. So there is some kind of sense of repetition there. And also, you know, because I think the way that I think, there's also sort of some repetition between the rocks and the hills here, because these are, you know, kind of big rocks in a way. So there's a few repetitions going on. This is, if you draw a line here, it's probably a 50-50 split. And again, as I've said on some of the other episodes, it's purely down to the sky. That sky for me is important in this picture because there is a link to the stones in the foreground. So the sky had to be included, and that's why we've ended up with the 50-50 split. The mountains that run across, the screes here being lit by the sun. It's just a nice, feel-good autumn image, really. The paper, I've gone for the matte Arch 88 again with this one, just to maintain really the sky. The sky has got the little puffy clouds. The rest of it is a really, really smooth blue. So I just wanted it to just be rendered as smooth as it looks. Also, because this paper is so smooth, the level of detail we can pick out in the screes here and the foreground rocks is quite high. The printer has done a great job. It's rendered everything really accurately. Again, pleasure to use. No switching of inks required, remember. You can put matte paper in, followed by shiny paper, and just carry on. There's no delay or nothing for you to do. So it's a nice printer, and again, it can make these fantastic pictures on these fantastic papers. So that is the second picture in the autumn episode. Okay, so here's the third image from the autumn episode. This is a picture called Cityscape York. It's quite a high angle viewpoint looking down at the city, but interesting because long exposure, and we've got the traffic trails here that, you know, kind of look like an artery going into the picture really, and we got the minster up on the top, but we've got some of these trees down here. Now it is the autumn episode, and you'll see that there's a little bit of autumn colour left in those trees. And this is a blue hour shot at the end of the day. And it's interesting having the leaves there. They just add something to the picture, a little bit more texture, a little bit more shape, and a little bit more colour. But the main sort of aim of the picture is to introduce you to York, to bring you into York, over the river, to the heart of the Minster Quarter up there in the top. It's quite contrasty, and as such I've gone for the Barita Prestige 2, which is the high D-Max 340 gram pure white with no optical brightness paper from Canson Infinity. Again, another good test for the Canon Pro 300 printer, and it's really, really done a great job again. So comparing this to the prints that I make on the wide format Pro printers, there's no difference at all printing on A3 Plus paper between the finishes I'm getting on this and the finishes I'm getting off a printer that's going to cost you up to £5,000 with inks installed. So it's a cracking printer for the money. No changeover getting from that last matte print to the shiny print. The range of tones is phenomenal. The paper can deal with it, and the printer can lay down that range of blacks and greys and all sorts of colours to give you results like this. Quite punchy, almost 3D finishes. So that's the third image in the autumn episode. For the fourth picture in this autumn episode, I've chosen this image made at Nice Point on one of the workshops a couple of years ago. What I try to do on the workshops is have some sessions where we include something called a masterclass, a composition masterclass, and we'll take a location, chat through working a scene, maybe using some foreground, showing some relationship between the foreground and the background, taking people on a journey through a picture. So it's an interesting exercise. Guys normally like it when we do that kind of thing. So this is what we did on the East Point Sky evening session. So concentrated on some interesting foreground. Got these lovely rocks here that sort of push the eye towards this central area where you've then got the escarpment pushing out towards the far end of the picture and the lighthouse sitting on the end. The sun is still in play. It's off here to the right, starting to just get low and starting to under light really to catch these clouds from underneath, adding a little bit of colour. So it's got a nice feel, this picture. It's got that feeling of openness, of sort of expanse, a wide angle shot, which is something I always like to do. It's the reason I got into landscape photography in the first place. I liked wide scenes. I liked the challenge of trying to capture what I was seeing with my eyes on paper, using a camera, trying to arrange it all in that viewfinder. So shots like this are what would have inspired me at the start of my photographic journey 17 years ago. Got the sky filtered down as normal to try and balance the light. And this is kind of what we were looking at on the back of the camera at capture. So it's got some nice contrast. However, it's got a lot of warmth and it's got that nice sort of evening warmth going on because of the sunset. It has got quite a good range of contrast. We've got some really punchy colours here and some brighter areas and some darker areas, bags of detail. So for this image, I've gone with the Barita Prestige 2, the 100% cotton barium coated paper, purely archival, but with a very, very good D-Max, which is fantastic for, as I've said before, sort of showing contrast on images. So it lets everything sing out. These sort of rocks here almost sort of jump out of the sort of paper towards the viewer. The printer, the Canon Pro 300, again, as it has done on every picture so far that we've seen, it's done a fantastic job here. This image is full of depth, it's full of warmth, it's beautifully detailed. It's a heavy paper. Again, this is the 340 gram paper, and using the manual feed slot at the back of the Pro 300, absolutely no problems feeding this through. And what I like about this paper is because it's 340 gram, it's quite reassuring, quite stiff. And if you're using sheet material, it's an absolute pleasure to use. It's a nice heavy weight. It's fantastic for displaying. If you're showing your work at a camera club or in an exhibition or with me in a gallery, you've got no worries about how it's going to perform. And it's just going to hang, just tack it on the top and you'll never have any problems with things like cockling where, you know, people might tape a print all the way around, and when you get a reaction with atmospheric conditions in the situation where the print's going to go, you might get a little bit of movement within the paper, and then you start to get this effect where it ripples because the paper's tried to sort of expand and there's nowhere for it to go. But I've never had a problem. I've used this technique for 17 years of just tacking the top, and because of the papers that I use, because they're heavy fine art papers, I've never had an issue, so I'll carry on doing that. So that's the fourth image in this episode. Okay, so we've arrived at the final image in this autumn episode, and for the final image I couldn't finish without looking at a traditional autumn scene. So we're back in the woodlands. This time we're up in Scotland around the Glen Esk area, and we were in a motorhome just having a bit of a break, and we asked the lady who we were staying with, you know, anywhere nice, sort of woodland walks, just hoping to see a bit of colour, and she said, yeah, just at the back of the site, if you walk just 2 or 3 minutes, you get to this lovely dell, and it was absolutely beautiful. Just behind us here is a stream. You cross the stream, and then from here you drop down, and these trees at the back, it's like a saucer-shaped dell. It was absolutely lovely. The sun was out. We can see here we've got some deep blue sky. The sun's kind of behind looking into the picture, hence you've got these really lit leaves. The birch trees look absolutely fantastic. It's really nice, and you can just make out a pattern here, a pathway going through the picture if you look at it closely. But the thing about it, it's all about vibrancy and colour. So this tree here is the main star of the show. Obviously the eye hopefully goes past and goes into the woodland, but there's all sorts of colours and details going on. And it's just a typical woodland scene. And one of the things I remember about the day, if you look on the floor, the leaves are really, really clean. So sometimes we go into the woods and people have been mooching about, it's been raining, and you get dirty leaves, which doesn't do any favours to a picture. But these must have been, recently deposited on the floor. And not many people were walking through the woods, so it was absolutely beautiful. And we spent, I don't know, an hour and a half. We were itching to get off to the next location, the motorhome, but we spent about an hour and a half just walking through, went right through the wood to the other end. So a lovely picture. And for this one, again, I've gone matte. So again, look, no reflections whatsoever. And I've used the Arch 88 smooth white, the pure white, Arch 88, no optical brightness. It's full of warmth and light and drama, and the matte paper and the Canon Pro 300 printer really have conjured up a beautiful scene here that's full of vibrancy. It's really, really nice, and it's an image that I won an award. I think it was the Paris Prize a couple of years ago. It's actually behind me. I don't know if you can see it when you can't. It's here on the side, framed in the gallery on an A2 print at the moment as well. So it's an image that I like, and that concludes the autumn episode. So until the winter one, take care.